I couldn't tell my wife about this or the bishop or lose my career and my family and destroy my membership in the church, this life that I had created, but it was not really mine, and I was living a double life. What would you do in this situation? Do you come clean at this point?
Mark, a lifelong member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, grew up in St. George, Utah, served a mission in Texas, and later earned a Doctor of Pharmacy degree. He now works as a pharmacist in Colorado City, Arizona, and has been actively involved in various church callings, including serving as an Elders Quorum president. Mark enjoys time with his family, lifting weights, watching inspirational movies, and sharing his testimony of Jesus Christ's power to cleanse the soul.
I am so excited to be here. I'm just so grateful to be the first speaker at the first Comeback to Christ event. I'm so grateful to be involved in this process and just in the whole thing, and they invited me to come and share with you. I'm here to tell you that Jesus Christ has changed my life. I had the picture-perfect start to life. It couldn't have got any better. God gave me everything that I needed to succeed spiritually. And just to kind of give you an idea, a heads up of what's to come and what I'm going to talk about, I threw it all away. One day I found myself entangled in sin. And God came and he rescued me. And I was hoping just to be able to come back just as the prodigal son was, as a hired servant in God's household. But he did more than that. He took a robe and placed it upon my shoulders. He killed the fatted calf, and he has welcomed me with open arms. And I am here to tell you that Jesus Christ has the power to change anybody's life because he's done it for me. And I'm so excited and just grateful to share with you some of these things. So I grew up right here in St. George, Utah, as Ashley said. I was born to great parents. I've been a lifelong member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But if you would have come to me when I was a kid and told me that one day I'd be speaking at a Comeback to Christ event, therefore implying that I would one day stray from Christ, I would have pooped my pants. Only because I had that good of a start. If they could have given an award to people, the least likely person to stray from Christ or to do everything right in their life, that was me. I got along with all my siblings. I was a straight-A student. I went to seminary. I did what my parents asked, and that was my start to life. I had a real foundation and a belief in God growing up. It couldn't have been any better. When it was time to go and become a missionary, I just went. I was excited, and I had an amazing missionary experience. I came out of the MTC speaking Spanish. They called me the Spanish machine. God literally gave me the gift of tongues. I went to South Texas. And God supported me through my missionary experience the whole time, and I saw his hand in my life. When missionaries come home, sometimes you've seen this happen. They'll sleep for days to catch up on the sleep that they missed. They binge watch all the shows and movies. I refuse to do that. I would not watch television, movies. I continued to wake up early. I brought my bike home from my mission, and that was my primary mode of transportation. It was just that ingrained in me. I was so dedicated and committed. I would go out with the missionaries teaching lessons every week. I was living at home here in St. George, Utah. And I still don't know where this comes from to this day, but my brothers and I, we've all had this natural desire or inclination, maybe it's the man inside of us, to grow our hair out and have facial hair. And I was home from my mission, and I just wanted to be a little bit different. And I'm like, well, what's the problem with a little facial hair, right? Well, a year and a half later, if you can kind of see the picture, this is me. It's kind of blurry, but so that's me a year and a half of my mission. I think I took it a little out of control, right? And I was out with the missionaries I was helping fellowship a young man. It was a Saturday night, and it was the weekend of General Conference. And they said, let's go take, I think it was Luis. Let's go take Luis down to the visitor center, and let's watch the priesthood session of General Conference in the theater room. And if you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about, in the St. George Visitor Center. And it was amazing. And I came home from my mission in the early 2000s, and speaking that night was Elder M. Russell Ballard. And a lot of you remember this talk. It's called the Raise the Bar Talk. You know what I'm talking about. And he mostly was talking to people before they went on their missions, but he also had a portion where he addressed returned missionaries in this talk. And remember, my hair's down to my shoulders, my facial hair is out of control. And I quote him, he says, "To all you who have served missions, you were released from your missions, but not from the church. You spent 2 years as a representative of the Lord Jesus Christ. I expect you to always look and act like one of his disciples. Look the part, act the part. Do not follow worldly trends and fashions. You're better than that." I was like, the missionaries looked over at me. The investigator, he looked over at me. It's like, what is this guy's problem? David A. Bednar says that the most dangerous form of rebellion for believers in God and Christ is not an aggressive one, but a passive one where you simply pursue your own path in your life without regard to divine direction. I knew what the right thing to do was to cut my hair and to clean up my appearance and just look the part that I was supposed to look. But this was the beginning of my path away from God. Because you know what I did? I said, I don't need to do that, and I made up reasons. This is called justification and pride. Also in the early 2000s, the internet became more readily accessible in the home, and with it came pornography. And even though I was doing a lot of things right, I was tempted, and I viewed it. I didn't go to the bishop. I kind of had a reputation as the guy that can keep the commandments of God, but he doesn't look like he is. I kind of felt prideful about it. I didn't go to my bishop. I didn't tell my parents, and it got worse. And it developed into a true addiction. And the problem is with pornography, it can completely drive the spirit out of your life and your ability to feel emotions and take your mental health completely down. And that's what happened to me. And I just dealt with this for years and years. And suddenly I felt like I was a second-class member of the church. And maybe all those things that people said about me, and maybe the person that I thought I was, that I wasn't that person, and this was who I was. Not able to keep the commandments of God, not good enough, not strong enough, and that I really wasn't ever going to make it to heaven. So I just dealt with this problem for years and years. I would make some progress here and there, but it just would always come back. For the sake of time, I got to skip portions of the story, but basically, over these next few years, I happened to meet a beautiful young woman, and somehow, some way, I convinced her to marry me, because I got married. We were living in Utah, and a year after I got married, I graduated from pharmacy school. And we had to find somewhere else to live because there was no jobs in Utah. This was back in 2010, and the job market was terrible. And my wife grew up in Florida, so that's where we went. And when I got to Florida, I just started working all the time. We had a couple of car payments and student loans and a nicer house, and before I knew it, I was just broke. We were broke on a different level, and I was just working my life away. And I wasn't feeling that connection, still feeling like I wasn't ever going to make it. And the problem when you feel like that, I think sometimes you just realize it and you're just going to go the other way. So I wasn't really trying. I wasn't making the effort that I needed to make a connection with God. Not too long after we moved to Florida, I had stayed clean from pornography a little bit when we first got married, but it just came back, and then I just started having that issue again. But also when I get home from work, just to kind of decompress after a long day of work, I would just watch movies and television shows. The ones that I liked were the action ones. You got those movies, the ocean movies where they're robbing casinos. You got the Bourne movies and all these double agent movies, people living double lives. But to me, it was just harmless entertainment. President Nelson says that the voices of the world are engaging, enticing, numerous, and deceptive, and seductive, and can pull one right off the covenant path. And if most of the information you take into your mind comes from social or other media, your ability to hear the whisperings of the Spirit will be diminished, and you leave yourself vulnerable to the philosophies and temptation of the world. Through what I was watching, Satan was using the innuendos and the subtleties to tell me that this is how I was going to find happiness, doing something that I saw in these movies and these shows. I was learning how to lie and get away with it, cheat, steal, be dishonest, and live a double life and get away with it from what I was watching. And when we were living in Florida at a time, it just so happened that there was a problem with oxycodone where doctors were giving out prescriptions to anybody that would ask them for them. All you had to do was pay a doctor and he'd give you a prescription. The way that most pharmacies dealt with this problem was just to turn everybody away because we didn't know who actually needed these medications or not. So that was just a standard procedure. Somebody shows up and you just turn them away. There were some pharmacies that would take advantage of the situation and they would charge $1,000 for a month's supply of oxycodone. They wouldn't take insurance, no credit cards, it was cash only. And this just happened all the time, everywhere. The company that I happened to be working for, they didn't adjust prices based on market conditions. And they only expected $200 to make a profit from oxycodone. I don't know if your mind works like mine was working, but hopefully it doesn't. But anyway, there's a difference there, right? $1,000 and $200, I saw an opportunity. And Satan he had me in his grasp, and he just started digging in. And one day, I just came up with a plan how I was going to profit off of this. A guy showed up with a prescription for oxycodone. I told him it'd be $500. I couldn't give him a receipt, and it'd be cash only. He was excited. He couldn't even get his prescription filled anywhere anyway. I took the $200, made sure it got in the register. The difference between $500 and $200 is $300. And you know where that went? Right in my pocket. And nobody caught me. I got away with it. And it was exciting. Just like in these shows and these movies. And I did it again and again and again. And I stole thousands of dollars from the company that I was working for. And here's the thing. Here's how stupid I was, okay? I was justifying it. This is highly criminal activity that can get you into prison. And I said, what's the big deal? The company that I was working for was getting the money that they needed. And I was doing people a favor. And so I justified it. So this went on for a while. And I would travel for work a lot. So it gave me a lot of time to reflect on my life. And I knew that I was in serious trouble. Deep down inside, I didn't feel good about myself. 10 years before that, because 10 years had passed since my mission, I was bringing people to Christ. I was full of the light of Christ when I was a missionary, and I knew I was rebelling against him. I was breaking his commandments. I had broken my covenants. I was living a double life because, by the way, and I forgot to mention this, my wife, she knew nothing about this. I had learned that if you're going to get away with something like this, you can't tell a single soul because that puts you at risk of getting caught. I was still going to church every week, pretending like I was just a regular, good member of the church. But there was no spirit in my life. My wife could sense something was wrong with me. She would ask me, and I'd just say, no, everything's fine. She had no choice but to believe me. So this went on for months, taking money. And I hoped that, I didn't really have hope, I guess, but I just wished that somehow the missionary service that I had done counted for something when I would go to stand before God, because I knew I was in trouble when I was going to die. I believed that God had forgotten about me. He had no use for me. I wasn't doing anything for him. I was at church one Sunday. on the back row. You've seen these guys at church, head down. They're there physically, but not really there spiritually or mentally at all. Just sitting on the back row. That was me. Well, the stake president happened to be there. And he said, I'm here to teach the lesson today. I'm here to teach the lesson about the importance of being honest at work and in our business dealings and with our fellow men. And suddenly I sat up. That's interesting. He said, you know why I'm here to do this? Everybody just sat there. I wasn't going to say anything. He said, I'm here because I received a spiritual impression that somebody in this ward needs to hear this message. You guys know what this means. You guys can feel this. This means that God had not forgotten about me. He was reaching through the darkness, through my sin. He was trying to bring me back to him, trying to restore my life and my hope and my faith, and bring me to a life of peace and happiness. But I was too far into this. I couldn't imagine telling my wife. What would you do? Would you come clean at this point? Hopefully. I couldn't tell my wife about this or the bishop or lose my career and my family and destroy my membership in the church, this life that I had created, but it was not really mine, and I was living a double life. And we had kind of become dependent on the income because I was taking extra money. So I just kept on doing it. Well, I got caught eventually. I learned that you never admit to the truth if you're going to get away with something like this. When they pressure you, you just keep on denying it. That's how you get away with it. I was interrogated by a detective at the police station, denied it. When the cops arrested me, I denied it. I was denying it all the way, and that's what I was going to do till the very end of my life. Well, I get to jail, I have to call my wife, right? Because I don't have any way to get out of jail. I call my wife. She is hysterical. Like, where have you been? She had no idea. I said, you know what? They accused me of doing something at work I didn't do. So just figure out a way to bail me out and we'll figure this out. She bailed me out and we got a recommendation for an attorney. And the next week we were going to go meet with the attorney. And the day before, I'm sitting at my house talking to my wife. And I said, hey, honey. Did I call you honey? I don't think so. Hey, babe. When we go meet with the attorney tomorrow, I think it'll be best if I just go meet with the attorney alone. Now, you guys all know what this means. She knew what this meant. And if you guys don't know my wife's story, before she came back to Christ, before we were ever married, in her young adult years, sorry if I didn't share anything that she didn't want, or share something she didn't want to hear. When she lived in Florida in her young adult years, she had a boyfriend. His nickname was Monster. He was black, 6'5". He was a drug dealer, a football player, and a bouncer at a bar, all in one. This was my wife's previous life. So who did I think I was dealing with here, telling her that I was going to go meet with the attorney alone? My wife has what we call street smarts in my house, okay? People smarts, street smarts. I got some book smarts. I can fix the computer when it's not working and the Roku, which she can't. But she's got street smarts. So she knew what this meant. She looked at me. She said, Mark, if you have done something wrong, I understand that. I'm not perfect myself. We can get through this. Our marriage isn't over. But I'm not going to stick by you if you're not 100% honest with me. And I was stuck. I was like, I just stared at her. What would you do in this situation? Do you come clean at this point? I couldn't see that this was going to ever work out. I'm like, there's no way she's sticking around if she knew what I was doing and who I was, and I was living this double life. But I didn't really think that I could actually get away with this and that she wouldn't find out any portions of the truth through all the proceedings in the court and all that was going to go on with that. And so for whatever reason, for some reason, I just told her the truth. In that moment, I told her everything. Well, as you can imagine, she was heartbroken, devastated. You know what I mean? Just our marriage, just so you know, became on rough terms for years because of this. Not because of that moment, because of what I'd done. Just on rocky terms. We were always at odds for years. It took me that long to rebuild the trust. We met with my attorney. She said I was at risk of going to prison. And if we tried to fight this, that it was likely that was what was going to happen, because they'd dig more into it and they'd find more stuff and I'd be in more trouble. She said if I pled guilty, then I wouldn't have to, and so that's what I did. I pled guilty to multiple felonies, misdemeanors, grand theft, petty theft. Part of the consequences were I had to pay back the money that I took. I was on probation with the law, met with a probation officer every 2 weeks and had to take a drug test. And part of the consequences, I couldn't work as a pharmacist for 5 years or in the medical industry altogether. I got a job cleaning carpets during the day and delivering pizzas at night. We lost everything that we had financially. Our cars, our home. We moved in with my wife's grandma, bless her heart for letting us move in with her. My marriage was hanging by a thread. My membership in the church was in jeopardy. And I destroyed my career, all through my poor choices and my bad decisions. I couldn't see that how this could ever change, how I could ever restore my good name with my wife, how I could become clean from what I had done, because I knew too much. I started out too good. I couldn't see it in my future, that this was ever going to have a good ending. I met with my bishop and my stake president. They were encouraging. They said, Mark, if you will turn your life over to Jesus Christ and become his disciple, you will look back at your life and it will be completely erased. It will be as if it never, ever happened. And I didn't believe it. I was so in the depths of despair. I had caused so much heartache and done so much damage. But they gave me hope in that moment that maybe, just maybe, I could change my life and things could be restored to some semblance of normalcy. I began a serious study of the Book of Mormon. And the book came to life with the power, the words of the power of Jesus Christ, the power that he has to cleanse the soul from sin. And I learned what I had to do. I came across the scripture in Mosiah chapter 7:33. This is when King Limhi and King Noah and his people, they had rejected Abinadi the prophet. And they were suffering for their sins and the consequences of what they had done. And King Limhi says to the people, if you will turn to the Lord with full purpose of heart and put your trust in him and serve him with all diligence of your mind, he will, according to his own will and pleasure, deliver you out of bondage. I felt that scripture into my heart and many other scriptures as I read the book, and I knew what I had to do. And you know what I had to do as well. I had to change my life and I had to become a serious disciple of Jesus Christ, and that's what I did. I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done with sin. And I had to backtrack over my whole life and look where I had gone wrong, and I realized it was that day when I sat and heard Elder M. Russell Ballard tell me that I needed to cut my hair, and I refused to do it. I've looked like this every day of my life since then. I threw away the shows and the movies that I was watching. I said, I'm going to live an honest life. I had so many times where I had to tell the truth. It was so uncomfortable as I'm trying to get better jobs after cleaning carpets and delivering pizzas. And I had a criminal record and I was a felon. And it's like, how are you going to explain this? And I had to tell the truth. But I would always tell the truth. And little by little, my life began to change. And Jesus Christ began to take the pain from my heart. It's been 13 years since this happened, since these events went down. At the 10-year mark, in between we had moved back to Utah. At the 10-year mark, I was called in by the stake president. He said, Mark, the Lord has called you to be the elders quorum president of the ward, and I couldn't believe it. And I looked down at my life, and I looked at my life at that point, and I realized it was true what the stake president had said many years ago. that it would be completely erased and gone from my life if I was willing to submit to Jesus Christ and ask him to forgive my sins and take them from me, and that's what he did. And I testify to you of the power that Jesus Christ has to change the soul. He loves everybody so much. He has a plan for everybody. He forgets about nobody. He loves everyone. And his power is unbelievable, and I give grace and praise to his holy name, and I share this with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.